Hey, Riffin While Black. I'm Dr. Kazika Prince, and I'm here with my friend, Dr. Lawrence James. How you doing, my brother?
Brother, I'm good. I'm good. It's a beautiful Thursday in cold Chicago, and so I'm gonna make the best of it and enjoy it. How about
Wait a minute, hold up. It's cold again? I thought it was
man? It's
spring.
it's always cold, dog. It was 70. It was like 72 on Monday, and I was like, oh, but it's delusional because I forget it's Chicago, so it ain't really gonna be warm until like June. So it just be pump faking you. You know, what I mean, it's like you playing basketball. You getting them up and getting fouled. I get fouled every time because it's
Every
like
time.
it ain't gonna be warm. So it was like 70 on Monday, dropped down to like 50 something, 40 at night. I'm like, so we in the middle of the 50s right now. So I'm like, got my winter coat back on, the whole deal.
Because it's warmed up here for us,
Don't say it.
Texas.
Don't give me this 90
But
and Austin BS.
but it's cooled down considerably to the 60s. To the
See, I
60s.
knew you was gonna come with the hate, man. I knew you was gonna come with the hate. It's been cooled down into the 60s. It's 60 overnight, right? You're like,
No, it's,
I
it's
got my
down in the
winter coat
50s at nighttime.
on the bed, and you're like, yeah, man, it's 60 at night. I'm like, it's 38 here. I'm like, what you talking about?
We sleep with the windows open. It's all good. Little chilly. Well, we got some good topics to discuss for today while we riffing on the good things and
Yeah, man.
interesting things. First topic we have is what does black men supporting black women look like, and vice versa? Because we talk a lot, we get a lot of hate, right? We a lot of them niggas ain't shit, them bitches
Right,
ain't this, all this kind
right.
of that. But there
Hmm.
got to be a way of showing support for one another.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that. And then we'll talk about how are black men reacting to catching hate from sisters. Say just a little bit more about that one, because that was the idea you had.
Yeah. I've been watching a lot of social media, and I can't say wrong. The sisters are coming after brothers for not being supportive, and the brothers ain't reacting well to catching heat. There's a whole lot of excuse making. Well, this, that, and the other thing. But I think there's some nuance in that conversation that needs to be had. From the male perspective, but also on the female perspective around that. So I just wanted to have a little dialogue.
Yeah, I'm feeling you. I think that's a really important thing. My damn notes closed up on me, so I'm gonna reopen them again. So bear with me as I open them. But I know the last topic has to do with the civil. I say civil rights, but it's our voting rights specifically. They have been basically shuttered and closed down and all the good stuff. But that's our side eye for today. And so we're gonna get into that because I've seen some pretty. The good thing about every time something goes down, there's always some brothers and sisters and others who are willing to put information down. The one I like the most was the one guy says, "We don't give a fuck what y'all think about whether whether you want if you think the civil rights thing was important or not. We don't
Mhm.
care what you think." And I'm like,
We don't care what you.
yes, we didn't ask you. No one asked you, bruh.
No,
But
no,
we'll
nary.
get to that in a few. But let's start off as we usually do with a grounding card. I have to say, man, this last week has been really great because Brene Brown was here in town. For folks who know,
Nice.
she's a social worker and psychologist. I believe she's a psychologist or a social.
Psychology.
Yeah, and she's based out of Houston. Came here for an event, a group called Austin Together. They had a collaborative community summit, and came. It was a community event, so about 600-700 people showed up. I'm not sure, but I actually had a workshop following her session,
I was like, really,
and
you gonna work people out for the whole day?
hey,
As we coming together, let's pound some
come
iron.
on, let's come on, Renee, let's go.
Right.
And we had a session after that, and we used the Djembe deck with like 75 people, and it
Go.
went really well. A
I was
lot
gonna
of
ask
really
you, how did it
positive
go?
feedback. I'm sorry?
I was gonna ask you, how did it go? I'm like, that's
No,
pretty cool.
good feedback. We're talking about maybe possibly coming back at another point, but it was really great. Had a great time, and feedback was very positive. We even had some data that we collected showing that there was some really important gains that people experienced during. So happy to hear that. But
Congratulations
let's
to you.
Oh, thank you, thank you. It was a good time. It was good to see people really committed to this work. So, and Brene, she's a smart cookie, so I'm gonna give her
Okay.
that. Um, so let's see, let's do let's do this one. Feelings that I often develop when talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion are blank and blank. Feelings I often develop when talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion are blank and blank.
Yeah, man. Why both my feelings are like not particularly positive, right?
Let's
It's
go
like,
there.
like anger and sadness. And I think for obvious reasons, I'm like, and my anger is generalized because I'm mad at black people, I'm mad at white people, I'm mad at everybody. Cause I'm like, why are y'all talking such crazy bullshit? And you haven't really thought through what you're saying. So I get real like, I'm just pissed. I was like, why am I having this conversation with you? Because you don't know what you're talking about. And what you are saying is stupid. And I think the correlate becomes sadness because I was like, oh my God, we are so far, sadness slash hopelessness. I'm like, man, we are so far from anything that looks like equality, but even just understanding. Like we talking apples and oranges. We ain't even talking about the
Mhm.
same stuff, right? So I mean, so that's the combination, for me. But how about you?
I do feel at times feelings of dread, particularly now because of if it wasn't the voting rights, it's the ICE, it's a number of things. And for those out there wondering why are you talking about this if you're talking about DEI, well, we're talking about this because these are the kinds of things that DEI was all about. It was about freedom of expression and being free to speak your mind. And, it doesn't mean you don't have any consequences, but the freedom to be. And for a lot of our ancestors, this is what they fought for. I mean, they had riots. Parts of Birmingham burned down so we could have these rights to bring people's attention to the injustices that are going on. And so to be here, this is what, 70 years later?
Mm.
And we're like having the same fight and the same conversations about basic stuff. So I feel a sense of dread. I also have to remind myself, particularly in these moments, to be, I know it sounds corny, but to have some sense of hope. Because
Mm.
the hope I experience is, man, it isn't what it was 70 years ago, but there's still some really foul stuff going on right now.
Mhm.
Some real fucked up stuff that's going on right
Yeah.
now. But I feel the benefit is I feel a connection to brothers like you, other folks here locally. I feel committed. So the dread is there. Don't get me
Mhm.
wrong. But underneath it, through it, somewhere around it is a sense of hope that I'm trying to maintain. Not superficially, but like focusing on the things I want to get done despite these changes and these 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 attempts to shut down our rights.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that because I actually do think maintaining hope, as much as I feel the sadness and all that, it doesn't really deter me from doing this thing that my soul compels me to believe is the right things for me to be doing in my life
Hmm.
in whatever ways I choose to speak to it. But it can be, you know, it's exhausting, to always feel like, you're trying to pull a boulder up a hill, and it's like, oh, you
Here
know,
we go.
stop for a minute and then be like, okay, let me get back at it.
Here we go. And we'll talk about it later, but it's been crazy to think about Chief Justice Roberts. He's been working on this for 40 years.
40 years.
I guess he
I saw
feels
a
a sense of
thing, man.
accomplishment.
I don't know if you saw this. I saw this thing that Lewis Powell, who's on the
Hmm.
Supreme Court, uh, he was a justice. He didn't become Chief Justice. Was one of the earliest architects of the Republican plan, basically to gut not only the voting rights, but
Hmm.
really to create this oligarchy at the head of the U.S. government and a Republican takeover of state houses and all that stuff. And I was like, God damn. I used to think like Lewis Powell wasn't great, but I didn't think he was like that dude. And I'm like,
Hmm.
you like Maximo Cracker. I'm like, hell no. And this dude's sitting on the Supreme Court. I'm
Yeah.
like, you on the cracker echelon with, you and Clay Thomas and stuff. I'm like, doing black people wrong, I mean, and really doing the nation wrong. It's like, come on,
Yeah.
man.
It's
What
so
we doing?
crazy.
What we doing?
Well, and it begs the question of what's our commitment to our Constitution, not the commitment to our own individual ambitions. But we'll
Zero.
get to that. We'll get to that because it's plenty there. But let's get to our first topic. which I think is a great. I'm glad you thought of it. But what does black men supporting black women look like, and vice versa? And I'll be honest, this is where I want to start because there's a this. I don't know about you, but I assume this is the case for you. There's some really talented, beautiful, amazing black women I know in my sphere, but just in general,
Mhm,
everyone thinks of the Michelle Obamas and stuff like that.
mhm.
But sometimes I feel like I'm gonna state the problem and then see the
Okay.
solution. I think sometimes because of the I think justified frustration we see in some of our relationships, whether they be romantic or friend, because of some of the ills we as black men have committed. And I say we, meaning because sometimes we may not have been there, but you sure didn't do anything to get in the way.
That's right.
And so there's some foul stuff happening to black women, right? And so you have this animosity is out there. And so sometimes I've come across some really talented, beautiful people who just there's this kind of there's an edge to it. And I'm not saying they shouldn't. Don't get me wrong. There's an edge there, right? Because it's like it's just this feeling. This is the best description I'll give you. I mean, they love you, right? But they're like that nigga, right? Because they've dealt with so much bull, right? And so here you are trying to come up with some new, hopefully positive energy, but there's a tentativeness, there's a distrust, right? I'm
Skepticism.
not saying
Yeah.
it shouldn't be there. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying it's a burden that we have to navigate. And so the way I would love to be able to find a way to get through that, not necessarily faster, but maybe just claim it, like name it what it is. Like
Name.
maybe I don't know you, I don't trust you,
Mhm.
but you know what? I wanna connect with you. I wanna get
Yeah.
to know you.
Yeah.
Because and I think that's one way that we can support one another by really connecting with each other and getting to know each other. Because I feel like part of the problem is we don't know each other. We
Yeah.
think we do, but we don't. And when I sit down with my sisters, I hear their successes because that's what we'll see on social media. But we also we don't hear enough about their struggle, right? And it doesn't mean we need to get in and fix it for them because that's problem number one. We always try to fix some shit and fix it wrong.
Like,
But
you
to
can't
really
fix your
hear
own.
them,
How you gonna fix
really
mine?
hear them and see them and be with them and be present,
Be present.
that I feel like that's what I need. Let me say this. I would give me love to be just sitting there and be like, yo, this is what I'm going through
Mm.
and just be heard and seen and appreciated. Those are that's the kind of thing that I want to see. And I hope that I can provide that as a way of supporting. But I don't know. That's what goes through my mind when this came up.
Agree, 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 agree. I think the thing that popped up in my head was honesty in conversation. Two things: honesty and emotional self-management. I'm not going to say emotional intelligence because I think that's just it's a trite phrase that many people in our profession are utilizing and people are using, but it don't mean nothing. Honesty in the sense of I'm gonna engage with you, be present, and be real. And I know, especially in the dating world, there's always a little bit of game that everybody's playing. And I mean, in reality, ain't nobody 100% honest
Hmm.
because you're putting your best foot forward. But for real things, rather than trying to play game and present something that's not real about myself, be okay with I'm going to be Lawrence. You can either love him or hopefully not hate him, but be like, Lawrence ain't my cup of tea, right? Because that's honest. And build and try to build relationships and even interactions on that piece. And it takes a willingness on all of our parts to take risks, whether that's not to be liked or not to be chosen,
Hmm.
um, to do that. But I think, and I don't know that black folks do it more than any other group of people, but I think we we aren't doing enough of that um, in our interactions with each other, whether that's men with men, sisters with sisters, or across the gender line. So I think one, be more honest. But I think to be more honest, you also have to be really more self-aware.
Hmm.
And that's where that emotion management piece comes in for me. It's like, if I know me well enough, one, I know where I'm coming from. And when you come if you come at me with some stuff that I think is a little whack, without being rude to you, I can also be like, "Yes, I don't agree." And I think we, under the guise of being supportive, we're kind of like allowing each other to get away with a bunch of BS.
Mm.
and not hold. And again, I guess it's we're not holding each other accountable in some regard in that. And so I think, when I think about relationships that I have with is, I'd like to believe they're pretty honest,
Mhm.
both in my girls will call me out, be like, "Boy,
Nigga.
Lawrence, that's some misogynist BS you just said." And I'm
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
"Yeah." I was like, "I didn't really mean it that way, but you're right. You're right. You're right. Let me check myself, right?" But I appreciate it because I was like, I don't want to be out here in the world being a clown. But I don't. I think there's too little of that in our relationships, especially amongst Black folks. And then it allows us to let BS bad behavior get away. I've been thinking about this a lot, especially with regard to our second top. Some of Black women are also complicit in Black men being a-holes. And I'm gonna say
Good
this, and
enough.
I might get some hate mail. Who raises Black boys? Black women, and
Well,
we let
yeah.
them get away with. We often let us men get away with all kinds of stuff that, oh, it's tough out here for Black men. Sure it is, but don't raise a little asshole either, right?
Yeah. Right. Little
Hold him
selfish little
accountable.
ass.
Right? Exactly. Because we allow Black men to be selfish, in some ways. And what are they going to grow into? Selfish, grown ass people,
Mm.
right? They're going to mistreat the next sister down the line. And so, I love when I'm seeing mothers holding their sons accountable.
Uh-huh.
That young man is going to learn a different way of hopefully being in the world and engaging. And so, and if his proverbial shit stinks, tell him his shit stinks.
Tell him lovingly.
Love him enough to tell him that, and then help to support him about, hey, here's a better way or a different way of going about that. You know, it's
Well,
not acceptable.
when you said that, it made me think about I went and saw the Michael Jackson movie. Yeah, yeah.
Quick review. Is it worth
I
going to see?
mean, I give it thumbs up
Okay.
because one is Black cinema. I want to support Black folks, and if you go in with the attitude that you're watching a long Michael Jackson music
Okay.
video, you good because
Okay.
that's kind of what you're watching.
Okay.
They never hook him up romantically with anybody. I don't want to give too much away, but ain't nothing romantic about anything in that movie. I'm thinking, was he like a eunuch or something? I mean,
Right.
I'm pretty sure he had some interest.
Right.
Yeah, decent movie, but one of the things you come out are two major themes.
Hmm.
Joe Jackson was a piece of shit.
Piece of shit.
He was
Right.
terrible. He was a tyrant. He was like an emotional terrorist.
Yeah.
Number two, his mama was a good person, I'm assuming, but
Mhm.
she was a bit of an enabler throughout a good portion of the story that they told, at least.
Mhm.
And she eventually spoke up. But I say enabler because this man was beating the shit out of his kids,
Mhm.
being a drill sergeant, and
Mhm.
I mean, all kinds of really insane stuff. And you say, oh, they would have been successful. They hadn't done that. I'm like, I think they could have been successful without that. They need to be treated like, military style kids.
You don't gotta bruise your kids.
Mm.
Be
And,
like,
and and I'm not saying I don't know, I wasn't in the house growing up with Michael Jackson, but oftentimes, and you know this, oftentimes when you see homes like that have a lot of dysfunction, that there's an enabler
yes,
who kind of, because they're trying to survive themselves, they're
they trying to
trying to,
survive too.
you're trying to eat and they love the person, right? But
Mhm.
they're not quite, and then there's old school mentality about
Yeah. Right.
men.
Cross cultural stuff. Right.
But I bring this up because I think that accountability that you're speaking to and having those tough conversations and holding each other accountable in a loving way is critical. I think where the whole thing with Michael Jackson's mom kind of popped out for me was like, where was the curiosity? Where did the curiosity go about each other? Because oftentimes I feel like people we come to a conclusion about this is who you are or this is
This
what
is who you
what
are.
you represent. And the curiosity leaves, and we no longer ask questions. We're not no longer
Mhm.
curious about who you are or how you're
Mhm.
changing because I'm
Mhm.
mad at you or
I'm
I'm
mad.
disappointed
Yep.
or I don't like the fact you doing this and that. And
Mhm.
so we know who you are, so we don't have a relationship with you. We disconnected. And I'm saying this because sometimes we've said or done things that are pretty mean spirited. But
Mhm.
even when that's not present, there's a distance I see between us, and there isn't a willingness to get to know each other. Um,
Yes.
and, and so I know I'm kind of reiterating, but I think the part I'm going to add to this is that sense of curiosity that
Yeah, I
goes
love that.
with accountability.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes that curiosity is missing because we've made conclusions about who we are and what we are. And I don't know, I just every time I sit down with a sister, I'm speaking specifically about gender differences, but sit down with my sisters and have real conversations with them and see what's really going on, they don't need to tell me nothing. But when they do tell their story, man, it just helps me understand where they're coming from,
Exactly. Right.
what they're dealing with, and then of course my next question is, what can I do to support? Because there probably isn't. Maybe it was enough for just sit and listen to them,
You
but
know, right. Exactly.
I feel like that the
Well, listen and
curiosity about each other
acknowledge
is
too.
missing. I'm
Because you're
sorry.
saying, because it's listening and acknowledging, right? I mean, that goes a long, long, long way, because I think as men, we probably don't do enough. Well, not probably, we don't do enough listening, in the first place, but even acknowledge. I think that piece of acknowledgement maybe is a piece of what's been missing in some of the conversations. And it goes both ways.
Hmm.
I've had the experience on the opposite where I'm like, sister ain't listening to nothing I said. She's quite happy to tell me what I should do. Uh, but I'm like, you're not really listening to
See, now you're making me think about why is it that folks have a hard time doing things that you and I think are pretty basic,
or
being
should be.
curious, listening. And I'll be honest, I listen to some brothers. And I know I'm pointing out the problem, but I'm gonna get to the solution. The problem is oftentimes we act like damn fools. We say, them hoes this,
Well, there's that.
these bitches don't care about, they have this way of thinking about women
Yeah,
that's detrimental to them, not just themselves, but the women around them, right?
absolutely.
And because they hold on to these really negative ideas about
Mm,
women. And the thing is, they'll say this, they'll make these really negative comments about women, but they're for their mama or for their girlfriend or wife. They make these cutouts because they're special
yeah,
and different.
right.
And right? But their ideas of women are really toe up from the flow
Yeah,
up, right?
yeah. Neanderthal.
And I guess maybe that gets to the point of, holding other brothers accountable and say,
Yeah, that's true.
what you just said was some old bullshit. You know that,
That's
right?
foul. That's
That's
foul.
crazy as hell what you just said. You really think that about you think all women are like that? I was talking to someone not too long ago. They're like, I think that some of these women talking about they've been raped, they just lying. Including Trump. I don't know if he was. I'm like, wait, hold
Hold up,
up,
bro.
nigga.
Right. Right?
But again, I feel like those honest conversations are not happening amongst ourselves of challenging one another. Sometimes it's said in a joking way. And we're like, yeah, maybe it didn't happen that way.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
Mm.
maybe they are lying. I know someone who was lied on. And the
Right.
thing is, we all know that one story
One
about
dude.
someone who
Right.
lied. Who they
Exactly.
really did, they did get lied on. But that's such a small number compared to the
Exactly.
number of sexual assaults that are happening across this country. I'm not gonna go not believe these women when they say they've been raped. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm all over
No,
the
but
place
I
today,
think that's
but
really real because I think it begins to set some parameters around how I'll speak specifically to men, how we need to hold ourselves accountable. I think women have to hold themselves accountable in different kinds of ways, and I'm hard pressed to speak to that, not being a woman, but I think, this sense of being accountable for what I do and what I say,
hmm
and to some degree how I do what I say matters. And I'll be honest, I think you and I think it's easy, but there's a level of introspection of looking inside oneself to know who and what I am and what I'm about that most people ain't doing. They ain't doing. I mean, I spend my life in a therapy room. I spend my life in a consulting room talking to leaders. And I can tell you, my experiences, I'm talking about, and I'm not talking about 20-year-old people, I'm talking about 50 and 60-year-old people who have no real insight into what they believe, what they value, how they see themselves or other people, right? And like they sit in my room and I'm like, well, why do you believe that thing? That's a good question, Dr. James. I don't know. I'm like, well, goddamn. I mean, you've been believing this your whole life. You should have a clue. And they just sitting there looking at me like, that's a good question. I'm gonna have to think on that. Come back next week, same question. I'm like, you gonna think about that? What'd you come to? Yeah, I didn't really think about that. Or I didn't come up with an answer. I was like, maybe, I'm like, might be helpful. I'm like dudes, I've had men be like, all women are bitches. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, I'm like, you believe that for real? Yeah. I said, well, how do you think that's going to impact you being in a relationship with a woman? I don't have no impact at all. Really? I say, I think it does.
Mm.
I'm like, maybe that's a part of why your relationships don't work. I'm like, you starting with a belief that basically she ain't crap. I'm like, okay, that's a good point. That's a good point. I guess, yeah. But then they don't ever think about it. And they definitely don't ever get to a point of owning that, or looking at it at all. It's like, is that I'm like, is that really, and to your point about exceptionalism, I was like, because you know me, I'm stupid. I'm like, is your mama a bitch? Hell, I love her. Is your sister a bitch? No. You know, I mean, you got a whole list of women who ain't bitches. So like how you get to all women are bitches? I'm like, that don't make sense. But this one woman did this one thing. I said, that's one woman,
Mhm.
you know. And I'm like, well,
Out of the 5 billion women on this
I love
planet.
5 billion. And then you say all these things about, but I loved her.
And I'll be honest, I struggle with that because I think the way I think about things, and maybe this is how I've been since was a young person. I try to. I'm not Pollyannish. I know there's a lot of ill things out there in the world, but I think I have a tendency to think it's not the best of people, but I think of people in the sense of, we all have our struggles. We're all trying to
Yes.
do the best we can, and some of us are not, but we're living our life, right? But I don't walk around feeling like all anybody is bitches.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
My point is that how do you get to a state of mind where that's how you really feel? The question
Yes.
I'm wondering is, how did you arrive there? Because you weren't born that way. You
You weren't
didn't
wrong.
come out your mama's womb telling me, women's is bitches. So something happened, some
Something
series
happened.
of things happened. What was it? And for them, they may not think about it as a problem. I don't see that's a problem. It's just women are bitches, and you just have to live your life accordingly. And I'm like, I'm gonna challenge that premise. I'm gonna say it's probably based off of some experiences you've had. What are those experiences? Let's think back about what it is, because I can find just as much information about people being bitches as much as people being something very good.
Right. Right.
And
Thank
so
you, Bill.
it can't be just because all women are bitches. So help
Right.
me out.
Help me
And
out.
when you listen to their stories, particularly of men, you hear a lot of heartache, a lot of pain,
It's hurt.
a lot of
It's hurt.
distrust,
Yep.
a lot of just hurt feelings,
Yeah.
someone not being there when they were supposed to
Right.
be, or
And
they
shit
held.
that you haven't worked through.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
yes,
It's like
yes.
she hurt you, and now you've globalized to all women ain't whatever, and you've never dealt with the hurt and the pain that you experienced, you know, the loss. And you've made her problem you've taken a problem that's your problem and made it hers, right? Rather than healing inside yourself. That's what I meant by like that kind of piece about emotional management or self-management. That's the healing that each of us, I think, needs to invest in order to be present, to be in partnership, to not make crazy blanket statements about all people are this or that, all women are this, all men are that. It's like, let me deal with my own hurt and pain around my experiences with Black men, my experiences with Black women in this instance, or my experiences in relationships. Let me work on that first.
So what you make me think about is brothers in particular who've had some really negative experiences with women, right?
Absolutely.
Whether it be relationships, maybe they don't have a great relationship with their own mamas,
That's
right?
right.
And so their whole worlds have been formed around really negative things. And so I feel like sometimes, whether it was me as a clinician or just friendships, relationships, is like you need to go discover what a positive relationship with a woman looks like.
Yeah.
Because I get, because now it becomes a debate about, are you telling me my experience doesn't matter? I had these real experiences and I really was treated this way and blah blah blah. I'm like, you know what? I wasn't there. I'm not going to debate that. But now the question, the challenge for you is how do you build a relationship in the ways that we're talking about where you're being supportive to women, Black women in particular? How do you do that in a way that's meaningful? Because I think what's happened because of the harm that we've experienced or whatever environment we came out, we built some really sociopathic, narcissistic behaviors. I'm
Yes.
not saying you are, I'm saying you got some qualities or
That's
like it
quality.
where
Yeah,
you're
that's real.
disconnected from others and you can't empathize. You won't empathize. You only try to empathize. The muscles haven't even been built.
Right.
So I
And to
think
our
we're struggling.
we had last time, and some of that leads to some of the abusive behavior that we see that we were discussing, in our last conversation with Black men perpetrated toward Black women, right? You're in an abusive cycle because you have othered them, you don't see them as real human beings, and so and you're acting out. So I think there's so much to be said, but it begins with if we want healthier relationships between Black men and women. If we want a healthier community, that first starts with me being healthier in myself, and not mentally, but emotionally.
Hmm.
Emotionally, I got to do some healing. Yeah, your mama was abusive, your daddy was abusive, all that's real. And what am I going to do to heal around that? One, so that I'm not perpetuating the same stuff, because there are lessons learned. It ain't absolute that you're going to be a Rolling Stone, but it might be more likely. Because the lesson that you learned about how to be in the world as a young man is get out there, sow your oats, knock up as many women as you can, have many kids, and then we start to glorify it, right? As if that's the only way or the right way. And you're like, do you even feel that? Is that really what you want to be doing? And I met a bunch of cats who's like, Doc James, I'm out there. I'm doing it. But you look at their face and they're all scrunched up about it. Like, it doesn't really seem like that's where you want to be. Oh, I
Well,
can't help myself. Oh, but it ain't, but I can't help my come on, man. Well, let's work on healing something inside of you that you're not holding yourself accountable because you're actually engaged in behavior that you actually believe is harmful to you.
right, right. And it's funny you say that. I've been talking to a few brothers who are getting older. They're hitting their late 40s and 50s and stuff. And they're like, and I know this to be true for a lot of folks. It's like, I ain't getting any younger. And all those people they kind of, mistreated and they're starting to think about, "Well, I've been a bit of an asshole.
Right. I'm
I better
fucked up.
s- I better slow down and start
Right.
being nice to some of these people
Hmm.
because I want to be by myself."
Be by myself. Right.
And they don't wanna be by themselves, to be honest, a lot of times, their biggest fear is being by themselves. And I'm not saying they're needy and need to be someone around, I'm saying that they behave that way in a way that's self-sabotaging,
Yes.
right? And then they get to a point where they're like, "Wait a minute, I need to start doing things differently."
Yes.
And it requires them to look at their lives a bit differently, but the problem is that now you're old and you screwed over a bunch of people. A lot of those people are gonna be looking at you like, I don't know.
I don't
You
know.
say you
As
wanna be
well they
different."
should.
Exactly.
As well they should.
So you might need to move and start a whole 'nother friend group. People
I
that
got
don't know your ragged ass.
right. You're like, I'm moving to Houston. How come?
But,
I fucked over all of Austin, so I need to go somewhere else.
and you know what? Sometimes, but the problem with that is that sometimes you bring yourself, and that's the problem,
Well, that's always the problem. You bring
but
yourself, and if you haven't changed within yourself, it's gonna repeat itself. You know.
well well, before we move on to the next topic, the thing I'm walking away with is spending time with my sisters if they're open to it and really getting to know them and calling them and reaching out to them and being in a relationship and being present. And it may not be the first time or the second time I sit with
Mhm.
them, but over a period of time, being available, being
Yeah.
present, being curious about them,
Yeah.
not pretending like I know them when I don't. Because my hope is that that will be reciprocal. Because I think I know a lot of sisters here in Austin, but I'll be honest, I'm not sure how much of them I know,
Right.
right?
Right.
And that's okay. They may not. They may want it that way, and I'm cool with
That's right.
that. But I want to be, excuse me, open to the possibility because I think there's ways of supporting them. And then the curiosity part is, how can I be supportive? Because I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I walk away with.
And one of the things I'm walking away from this as we've evolved is the sense of authenticity, like challenging myself, challenging other men to be authentic and sisters too. Let me not
Mhm.
put that on men to be authentic. I think sisters are closer to being authentic more often than not, but to be authentic in relationship,
Mhm.
but that underneath that requires a whole lot of self knowledge and self awareness and introspection that we
Yeah.
have individually or collectively
Right.
to move that needle. We've centered other things,
Mhm.
um, rather than that work internally. So,
Well, and, I'll say this last thing. What you made me think about is taking a risk. Because sometimes when you're being authentic and you're being present, you take the risk of maybe end up losing a relationship or people being disappointed in you or
yes.
not liking or disagreeing.
Yeah.
And the thing I have to remind myself is that, yeah, there is a real fear, but I got enough skills to know how to manage that. I will be all right, and I
I'm gonna
can
be all
manage
right.
that. Yes, they might be disappointed, and maybe I'll change my behavior, maybe I won't, but we can work this out if we want to. We can figure this out. But that requires willing to take a risk. Let's switch over because the time is time keeps on going for some reason. Dr. James, I don't know why, but it
I don't
does.
know, man. I'm like, oof,
It's
I
who
need it to
did
slow
that?
down some days.
Well, our next topic is black men reacting, how we reacting when we catch hate from sisters. And I'll tell you this, we don't react very well.
You're like,
Like,
I
I
think
was
the
sitting with
topic
somebody
finished.
not too long ago, and someone called them out on something. It was something like kind of minor, right? At least it was to me. And they're like, "You old raggedy stink ass bitch, man." I'm like,
My
"Oh,
goodness, went off the deep end.
slow that down." I mean, I don't even know if they're right or wrong, nothing, but we react with a
It was
wholehearted, full
little over the
chest of
top,
anger because
right?
our feelings is hurt.
Right,
A little bitty boy feelings get hurt.
right, right. No, and that's what I like when I was looking at all this stuff after Serena Fairfax's murder, and and sisters. I think in many ways appropriately, we're coming out hard
Mhm,
about brothers and
mhm,
hate and behavior, domestic violence, all those pieces. And I think very real stuff. And that evolved into a conversation about brothers not supporting sisters.
mhm,
I ain't gonna lie, I wasn't quite sure how that segue happened, but it did. And brothers was like, "No, I support my sisters," and we're really, to your point, pissed and angry. Like, wait, how I got to be an asshole, you know? And it was a very defensive reaction. And I was like really intrigued by it because I was like, a lot of us ain't acting right, whether it's not you or me, but a lot of brothers ain't acting right.
right, right.
So I
But
couldn't
why
sit
do you
here and
think
be like,
that is, bro? Because I feel like oftentimes the reason is because we don't wanna be told nothing. I'm a
we don't
grown
want to be
ass man.
grown
I'm
ass man.
grown, and you can't tell me
You can't
nothing.
tell me shit.
And I feel like if you're coming from that place, like, you can't be told nothing, as if you know everything,
You know everything.
I just don't know how you're gonna get through life because some of the best opportunities for
Right.
me in life have been when someone has told me something about
Told me
myself,
something.
and
Right.
I had to receive it, even
You
though
had,
it was uncomfortable. I
yeah.
had enough sense of dignity or whatever it was, or maybe I don't know what it was, but at some point I had to be like,
Right. Right. And in this conversation, I love what you just said there because it's so important. Because to me, I want to say a healthier reaction to that heat is tell me more. Tell me why you believe that. What things maybe that I'm doing that may be misconstrued or accurately represented in my behavior. Let me think about what I'm doing and how that may be coming off. But again, we come off super defensive around anybody telling us nothing. And when I know the feedback will be, I'm fighting against the white man all the time, and
"Mm,
I need. Come on, man, stop. I'm like, yeah, that may be true, and that's not a reason to be an ass. I mean, that's not a reason to not look at yourself and look at your behavior and hear, and it is hard to hear.
it
I mean,
is."
I have a reaction. I was watching some stuff, and I'm like, I got my feelings. I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna be real, real. I got my feelings. I was like, but thank God I was at the crib. Scrolling on Facebook by myself. I didn't. I'd be like, I was kind of like, damn, that kind of hurt, was my initial reaction. And then I was like, all right, well, woosah, bruh. I'm like, can't say she right. Couldn't quite go there. Couldn't quite go there. But I'm like, I can't say she wrong though. I can't say
Right.
she wrong. And I'm like, that's something to really think about, you know. And I'm like, all right, check yourself.
We see, know, a good
What are you? I'm like,
we know a good
mhm,
example of that is when DL Hughley came out in support of Kamala Harris. Because remember when she first
mhm,
ran, or if we found out she was going to run, and he was dogging her out. It was almost like this kind of same kind of verbose and extra reactions to her running. Just he wasn't nice to her about it. And then he came back and he says, "I was wrong." And he was actually at the Democratic National Convention. I don't know if he apologized, but he was kind of like talking through his process of how he arrived. And the reason I'm saying this is because sometimes in the moment we think we're right. Matter of fact, I know I'm right. But sometimes we have
yeah,
to come back and think about it. Sometimes our friends got to talk to us.
yeah, man. Look, I think that opportunity to speak to and be thoughtful about what it is that you are doing, how you're doing it, and to be able to admit you're wrong. You know, how I was thinking about this was not right. I mean, I think there are these chances. There's a whole big conversation about Killer Mike and black men voting and all the Kamala stuff that was coming out back in that moment. And brothers are giving other brothers heat, because of the stances that they had taken around this, and I think appropriately so. And saying, well, if you hadn't done what you did or said what you said, Kamala might be the president now. So now you're kind of coming back, like I wish I had been more supportive. And I think we have to give some grace to folks when they may have made missteps, didn't learn. But I think the grace also comes with an insight and understanding of where I was wrong. It's not just good enough to be like, oh, I was wrong, but it's I was wrong. Here's what I've learned. Here's what I know more of today, or that I didn't factor into what I was thinking. Around a situation. I think that becomes a critical piece of understanding that there's an increased depth and insight that's necessary.
Hey, brother,
You
I
back,
think I
brother?
lost you for, for a second. Technology is a beast.
Audience, we had a technical glitch.
Yes. So this is the life of technology, and
Man, you missed it. I was on a drive. I was super brilliant while you were gone.
we're still recording.
You missed all of it.
My bad, man.
Right.
Sorry, it's
Like, woo,
technology, but it's still recording, so it'll get up there. It's in the cloud. It's in the cloud.
right.
Well,
In the cloud. That brilliance is in the cloud.
it's in there. I'll have to look at this later on and be like, okay, that was funny. Uh, I don't know, brother.
Right, exactly.
I think with because of time, I want to make sure we move on to our side eye. But one of the things I'm hearing is that we can definitely do a better job of supporting each other, but also our reactions to sisters might be a little more measured than it has been up to this point. Is that a good way of putting it?
A little bit more measured. And I think it's a great way of putting it. And I think we as men need to be a little less thin skinned.
We are kind of
Uh,
delicate.
because we be throwing some crazy heat at sisters with the expectation that they just gonna take it. I mean, we say some foul stuff, right? And they lean in and they hang in. I mean, they say one little thing to us and we lose our minds. Like, oh my God. I mean, it's like, you know, grow up, get a pair, be a little bit more thick skinned, and hear the legitimate feed that you're getting. You might still reject it, but take it into account.
Yes. Right.
Don't automatically reject it.
Right.
It's like, all right, give her, and part of it is give her the benefit of the doubt that she ain't coming from someplace foul.
Right. And I think that's the part that many of us distrust, right? That they're coming from
Yeah,
somewhere, they're trying to get us. The man's trying to get us, she's trying to get us, everybody's trying to get
right.
us. And I'm like,
Right.
that might be true. And
Might be true.
might there be evidence that there's some things that we need to adjust?
And that too. Right. I say this all the time. Two things can be true.
Yes, at the same time.
Two things at the same time. Two things can be true. You know.
Well, let me put up this card. This is the engagement cards, and then we'll get to real briefly to our side eye. In the past, I've been quick to judge blank. In the past, I've been quick to judge blank. I don't know if you want to go first. I got one for you.
You got it? Go for it.
I'll be honest. In the past, I've been quick.
You mean like yesterday? Go.
I've been quick to judge people who I disagree with politically. I had a conversation with a woman who was all Maha, make
Mhm.
America healthy again. She was talking all positive about RFK Jr. and this, and I was just like this
Motherfucker.
this motherfucker.
Mhm. Mhm.
But the more I
Mhm.
stayed in the conversation, the way I stayed in the conversation was asking more questions. And I heard, again, I
Mhm.
didn't agree with a lot what she said, but there were some things I found that did make sense and did agree with.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so my judgment may have been on point, but I went there so quickly before I even asked any more questions.
Yeah. Mm.
And
I feel you.
so I found that sometimes I'm quick to, particularly in this political climate, to come to
Yeah.
some judgments pretty quickly about things that I don't agree with, and I had to remind myself to slow down.
Mm. Yeah. I'm really quick to judge people.
With Jerry curls.
That was true back in the day. Like this motherfucker with this Jerry curl. I, no, I'm really quick to judge people who it's probably along the same. They say shit that I just think like it doesn't make sense. Like it's really I'm quick to judge people who say stuff that I think is illogical. It's like you just said something that was 1 + 1 + 1 ain't 3, but it's like 15. I'm like, that don't make no sense. And I'm like, and then I'll go as far as be like, you dumb. Even though some of them are like super smart. I'm like, that's really dumb. And I'm like, and I like you, I was like, I gotta really stop myself because I'm like, you are globalizing from one thing to everything about this person, kind of back to our last conversation. And I'm like, stop it. Stop it. Right. They got one thing wrong. Now, if they put 10 things wrong, you might be okay to be like, they dumb. But it's only one. It's only one.
And maybe they're
Like,
just dumb in this area.
exactly. That's literally that's how I do it. I'm like, okay, we can't really talk about that because you don't know what you're talking about. Right. My best friend used to do stuff like that. And I'd be like, oh my God. I was like, man, I love you to death. You my boy, you my homie. But he would say the craziest stuff, usually about sports. And it would just piss me off. And I'm like, you're an idiot. I'm like, stop talking to me. But I was like, okay, he's only an idiot about this thing right here.
Whether LeBron is the greatest or not.
Yeah, I mean, why athletes who no, the question always was athletes who make a bunch of money shouldn't get tired playing their sport. Exactly. See, see, I'm
But
like, bruh, this is a
plastic image.
physiological thing. It is not. I was like, it's not about money. Well, they have enough money that they should be in better shape. I'm like, okay, as one who has run marathons, no matter how great a shape you're in, you deplete energy and you get tired. That's just a physiological fact. No, it's not. No, no. I had to go and find research to give to this man. I was like, you're a fucking idiot. I'm like, stop talking. I literally was like, stop talking to me. I cannot talk to you anymore. Stop talking because you saying crazy stuff. Um, but yeah, I think that's the one. That's the one.
We won't talk about Jerry curls.
That's just bad decision making. It's like, what? Why? Why?
Well, our side eye
And
is
audience,
about.
even when I had hair, there was no Jerry curl. I was like,
You like nah.
nah.
Well, our side eye, unfortunately, we won't spend too much time on it, but our side eye is about the Supreme Court coming down with a decision, basically gutting the last parts of the
The last bit of the sword.
Voting Rights Act, which was, and we started talking about earlier, but it's really frustrating because now you have these mostly southern states, but a few
Yep.
others who are going in, changing their districts to disenfranchise black and brown folks intentionally, and
Yep.
saying it as because it's a political move than it is about
Yes.
race. And I'm like,
Right.
whatever, we know. And I think
Whatever.
the decision, this is why it's important. that they said, well, because they said, well, the way the law was written was about if we know that there's an impact, the disparity, and that something needs to be done about. And here they're saying, well, you have to know their intent. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold up. There's almost no way you can know their intent. I mean, sometimes because they tell on themselves, most of the time they don't. And so because you can't know their intent, then
Mhm.
when you see the actual impact, and so very sophisticated lies is what we're being told.
It really is, it really is, and it is, I mean, disheartening at the very least. And this version of the Supreme Court has gone out of its way to dismantle, you know, not only civil rights law, but anti-abortion law. And just I've been thinking about this a lot, like this whole notion about stare decisis, which is sort of you know what was legal precedent,
Mhm.
sort of honoring what has been legal precedent. I was like, well, y'all done shat on that like at every turn. I was like, does precedent doesn't matter, or seemingly by all the decisions that they're making, and this notion that there is a disparate impact on Black and Brown communities. And by the way, it will happen for Latino communities as well. And again, where I go with it is so this notion of a representative democracy is shot to hell, or could be, because you are taking away opportunities for people to be represented by their chosen representatives, but also for the country and policy to be shaped in a much more you know representative way of the population of the nation. The population ain't just white people. So but that's what we're looking at. I will say a hopeful note on this. I was listening to Eric Holder, who kind of runs the
Former
basically what the
attorney general.
gerrymandering project for the Dems. Yeah, worked in the Obama administration. He did say, or it's reported that, like, I can't remember the number of black representatives, but most of them do not represent black majority districts. So there is hope in terms of policy, but obviously most of those folks are, I think they're probably more likely in the North than in the South. I saw a stat in Mississippi, 34% of the population in Mississippi is black. They're probably going to have no black representation.
Right, right.
That's pretty damning.
That's pretty it's and unfortunately, it's a continuation of what we've known to be true already, right? I'm hopeful because I feel like you have the Eric Holders of the world, the former attorney general during the Obama years. And you have a lot of other really talented people out there in law and other spaces who I think, whether it's a political aspect where we say, I can't say I know enough, but the John Lewis bill that was fought for before, that there's other
Mm.
legislation that they might want to push, or even like a national ban against gerrymandering. I think these are all things that could be fought for. I don't know how easy or hard it may be politically, but if there's a change in how folks are being voted into office in this next cycle, you never know what the possibilities may be. Unfortunately, they're already planning and scheming to disenfranchise folks from their vote. I just hope we don't see poll taxes and all that kind of stuff come back. Are you there?
I think I lost my brother again. Internet must not like what we trying to say today. Very strange. Very strange. But I will pick up and say the Supreme Court is dismantling a lot of things that in my lifetime had grown up to be a part of who and what we are. And now they are selectively dismantling those things. I think what it does augur for all of us is to fight for the things that we say we believe in. Um, and that's via our vote. That's getting out and protesting, you know, and really pushing, as I think black folks in particular, but black and brown folks throughout the history of this country have been fighting for, in terms of making this a more perfect union, allowing and enabling the democracy to flourish in ways that we all could be happy with and proud of. Um, and so, but if we're not exercising our right, in particular our right to vote, and I've heard lots of brothers, especially, talk about, I ain't got nothing to vote for. Yeah, in my mind, you do, because we were seeing the ramifications, not just of brothers not voting, but lots of folks not coming out and voting and exercising their rights. In that we end up with a government that doesn't feel representative for many of us, and with policies that aren't representative of who and what we believe in. And so, the fight, I think, always starts with stand up and you know, do your part, do your share, be in the battle in that way. I mean, if there are things that you believe in, you should stand up and fight for them. And when we don't, frankly, I'm like, stop bitching. I'm like, because you didn't actually stand up for the things that you said you believed in. And admittedly, not everybody can stand up and fight. And what fighting looks like to you versus what fighting looks like to me is different. But I think we all have to sort of stand in, lean in, and fight for what we believe. That is our show for today. Thank y'all for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you with us. This is Riffin While Black. I'm Dr. Lawrence James, and my partner in crime, Dr. Kazike Prince, is also here or trying to get here, reconnecting on the internet. But until next time, good health and peace to you all.
You still there, brother? Can you hear me? Hey, can you hear me? Hey, can you hear me?